Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Wistia. Take control of your video marketing with powerful tools and analytics built specifically for business. Go to wistia.com/twist to get your free Wistia account today. And by New Relic. Visit newrelic.com/twist and see why thousands of developers worldwide don't deploy without it. And by AWS Activate, the Amazon Web Services startup program. It's easy to start and scale your business with AWS. Visit aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. I am here in Southern California at the Recode conference thrown by my good friends Walt Mossberg and Kara Swisher. They've been so nice to me over the years, giving me free tickets when I was with Engadget and Broke, and now letting me interview people for This Week in Startups at the show. And on today's episode, we have Mike Jones and Peter Pham, two legendary founders in their own right, who have now teamed up to do Science, which is an incubator helping grow companies in Southern California. It's a great interview with two legendary entrepreneurs who are now putting $40 million to work, building huge businesses like Dollar Shave Club, you may have heard of with that really funny video, and DogVacay, which is crushing it. It's going to be a great episode. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and this is This Week in Startups, our special Recode edition. Yes, we're at Kara Swisher and Walt Mossberg's first Recode conference, and they're very gracious to let me use the space here to do a couple of interviews with awesome people who happen to be attending what I consider the best technology conference out there. Now, listen, I run a tech conference too, so that's a big statement, but this is like the sort of the CEO conference, and a lot of the investors come here. And as you know, the Launch Festival is more about new companies launching, so they're kind of two different things. But this is the conference I actually pay to go and attend, and it's the only one I pay to go and attend. So it's a really great conference put on by two world-class journalists, and so just thank you to them. And I'm very lucky to have two very good friends of mine for a long time on the program to talk about their incubator, accelerator. I'm sure they have their own name for it, but you all know Peter Pham and Mike Jones from Science. I don't have to give them too much of a introduction, but welcome to the program, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I know you've both been on the program before anyway, with your past companies, so it's been, now that the show is 5 years old, we kind of get to see you guys over and over again, but previously, Peter, you had Color, and then before that, Bill Shrink, and then before that... Photo Bucket, right. So two great successes and one miss.
Yeah.
Pretty good track record as an entrepreneur. And Mike, of course, you did Savo, which did okay. You were president of MySpace, which is brutal and challenging. We could hear a little bit about that, I'm sure, as an entrepreneur. But obviously had big success before that with your chat and communications company you sold to AOL at the same time I sold the company.
That's right. We were there together.
We were there together for a brief moment in time. So tell everybody, what is Science? Why did you create it?
Sure. Well, we started Science, roughly almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we started with the premise of how can we create a platform where we can build, buy, and invest in things. So can we identify great entrepreneurs that we want to invest in? Can we have our own internal kind of operational team where we can build things? And if we come across interesting companies, can we actually buy them and consolidate them within Science?
So this theory is much different than, say, Y Combinator or Techstars.
Sure.
So, Peter, how is this model different than Y Combinator, which I'll let entrepreneurs understand?
Yeah, I think a couple factors. One, volume. There's no program per se. It's not 90 days. We are wholly invested with the CEOs in building the companies from day one, and that's lending our infrastructure around design, customer acquisition, and even engineering.
So it's not just come every Thursday, have a meal, and discuss your progress. They actually come to your office, and you have resources, you have a staff there. So what's the staff like there, Mike, and how do they break down? So when you say you have design resources, so if I come with an idea, hey, I'm going to do inside.com, do you give me a designer and build it with me?
Well, we have call it a 7-person design team that focuses on mobile and web.
7 full-time people.
Right.
Wow.
That's right. And then we maintain maybe a 30-person in total engineering team that's both in the U.S. and offshore. So we have a lot of heavy engineering resources. In certain cases, we have kind of owned and operated best-of-breed customer acquisition groups that provide, some of the best people I've ever worked with around Google AdWords, email, Facebook, etc. In certain cases, we have networks of businesses that we're involved in that can provide additional kind of growth services to investments that we make. So we look to become very operational with the management of the company to make sure that their entrepreneurial vision becomes reality.
And so what's the basic deal? Because that's what entrepreneurs want to know, right? Like, so what's the basic deal? How does it work? Is it different every time? Because everybody knows 6% Y, whatever it is, 6% for Y Combinator and 100K. Because you've had people there, I know we just had DogVacay, but that was a business that I think existed before they came to you.
Yeah, we were the first money in on DogVacay, and we worked with them very closely early days.
Right, but they had a business, or they had built it already, or?
He had an ad on Yelp, and they were kind of watching dogs on their own home and kind of seeded the idea that in that perspective.
He had kind of weight tested his concept.
So
as far as standard deals for us, I mean, it's so across the board because, recently we just announced that we purchased Delicious, right? And that was a full 100% acquisition of something that's now inside Science. It's a resource that we work with and we're putting a team around. In other cases, we're now looking at some later stage businesses where we'll take large minority positions in to help them grow. Certain cases, we'll work with an entrepreneur hand in hand. We'll be completely contributing resources and capital to the business, and sometimes we just invest. So there's no standard for us. The way we really look at it is saying, in certain cases, we put our money to work into businesses that we would intend to always have within Science. In certain cases, we put our money to work into businesses that we would expect venture to go support and that we will help grow up and build. We have a long, outlook in regards to how we see the growth of our capital investments, and we want to partner with the best people and make sure they have the right resources to be extremely successful.
But I think not to be too vague, right? If an entrepreneur comes to us with an idea at the earliest stage, I think our perspective is treat us like a co-founder because we're going to, be with them for the very long term. I mean, we are 2.5 years in with Dollar Shave Club and DogVacay, and Michael almost roomed with me here at the conference, right? I mean, I talk to him every day about a lot of things, and we're always helpful throughout the stage of the business. And
how many companies have you guys engaged so far in this 2-year or so journey?
There's probably around 40 companies that we spent a lot of time with. Some are very, very early 1-2 person kind of concepts, and that we have companies that probably have 50, 60 people at this point. So it's all up and down the spectrum of size.
And how big is the fund or operating budget? Because I see the announcements about what you raised, $20 million. I can't remember what it was. But how big is that? And then how does that work on an investment basis? Because it's sort of interesting. Sure. It's different than venture capital, isn't it?
So we initially raised $10 million as a venture round. So we are a company. Right. Then we raised an additional $30 million from Hearst. And so we operate off of a P&L. So we don't have a fund yet.
That's right.
So it's not really a fund. You just basically own shares in all these companies, and then you
we
work
on the balance sheet.
Why did you buy Delicious? Because obviously the bookmarking service was a huge hit in 2003 or 2004.
Yeah.
Yahoo sunset it, ignored it. I guess Chad Hurley purchased it as part of his new co for a year or two. Nothing happened that we could see it from the outside.
Right.
Are people still using that, and what's your thesis?
Yeah, so we began almost a year ago exploring mobile. So we started building our own mobile applications. We invested and built our own mobile ad network. We have done some other quieter acquisitions within mobile, but we've been looking for something that kind of bridged, content, trend information, and mobile access. It happens to be that Delicious touches all three. They see tens of millions of links a month that get poured into Delicious through both Facebook, Twitter, and people direct contributing through Android apps, iOS apps, bookmarking services, etc. It has a fairly strong community that uses a utility. Hundreds of thousands of people a day directly connect with Delicious. They have a giant historical user base of well over 9-10 million accounts on Delicious. So when we looked at it, we felt like there was a lot to work with there that would help us build some great mobile services and some great content services. And it just felt a nice way for us to kind of further build out that practice area.
All right, when we get back, I want to hear about the 2 or 3 companies that have been most successful in this model, and then maybe a couple of the misses and what you learned from them when we get back from this break. Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I hope you're watching it in the Wistia player, WISTIA. And the Wistia player has great analytics, and it's beautiful and customizable, and we do really interesting things with this player that we can't do with a lot of the free services where you host videos out there. like ask people, hey, would you like to give us your email address in order to get more information about this show, This Week in Startups, and join the mailing list to find out about new guests. And we get amazing analytics where we can see when exactly are people rewinding the show, or what sections are they watching. And we can design 100% of the experience around what we want, not what some big portal wants. In other words, maybe they want you to watch more videos on their site. You want people to watch more videos on your site. You want to customize your experience. You want to own the video experience. You don't want to give that away to some other big major tech company that doesn't have your interests at heart. You need to have your own video player, and you can go to wistia.com/twist, and you will get the first 5 videos free, no credit card required, and there's tons of support. And you don't have to worry about that big company that doesn't like to talk to their customers turning you off and then not telling you and not having a phone number. No, Wistia has ridiculous customer support. I know, because producer Gina and producer Jacob are calling them saying, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Boom, they get right back to you. It's super professional. MailChimp, Moz, Blank Label, Twist, and 50,000 other people use Wistia because it's beautiful, simple, and affordable. And I truly thank them for supporting independent media like this. Let's get back to this amazing interview. Thank you, Wistia. Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis again, This Week in Startups here at the Recode Conference. Thanks, Kara and Walt, for allowing me to do these interviews here. My guest today, Peter Pham and Mike Jones of Science Inc., which is an accelerated incubator something with $40 million in Santa Monica, run by 2 of the most respected executives in the industry. So when we went to commercial break, we were talking about Delicious, but let's talk about some of your big wins. Obviously, Dollar Shave Club is, I think, the most well-known. How did you wind up meeting the founder of Dollar Shave Club, and what attracted you to that business?
Jamie Kantrowitz, I believe.
Yeah, Jamie Kantrowitz is like a longtime friend. Has said you've got to meet him. We were fortunate enough to meet up with Mike very early. He had already made this commercial, and in the first meeting he said, well, I've made this video and I'm not sure I want to show it yet. We're like, oh, well, we really want to see the video. Like, let's take a look.
This famous viral video.
We saw this video. We're like, oh my god, like done.
Gold.
Like we have to do it.
Right.
And then what was amazing is when you introduced him to investors, it wasn't a clear yes for a lot of people.
Both Dollar Shave Club and DogVacay were not obvious early in the days. Both, I think, I'll look at my old notes, but it had to be 60 to 70 no's on each of those in the
I said no to Dollar Shave Club just because I don't understand e-commerce. But what did you see in it, Peter, that aside from the funny commercial, and the guy's got a cult of personality, obviously, it's brilliantly executed.
Him. So to me, and I've said this all the time, he is Richard Branson 30 years ago. He has this mind that imagines marketing and positioning and branding and conversation with the consumer that is not unlike the way Virgin speaks to us, right? He really gets people, and he really has built a brand. And the earliest sentiment was when I saw the video, was like, oh, he gets it. Right. And people are going to want to be him. Right. And it's proven. We have 700,000 subscribers.
700,000 people pay whatever it is, $5, $10, $15 a month. It's a couple of, what is the average like on the site? Is it $10?
It's there's a $3, $6, $9 product. Okay. But I'll tell you, we launched the post shave product last week, and inside the first 24 hours, 15,000 bottles were sold. $9.
The post shave
moisturizer.
Oh,
it's a new product.
$9 product.
Wow.
And 15,000 bottles in 24 hours. So he's really built a brand, and for me, I always feel great. You do a search on Dollar Shave Club on Twitter, and there's somebody talking about it every minute of every day.
Right.
In the voice of that. And that's what I saw.
It's a little irreverent. It's kind of
people want to be
a little
brand.
Maxim magazine, or just funny. Like
funny. People.
He's
the guy's guy.
He's the guy's guy. Now they did another product, the One Wipe Charlie's, the butt wipes. Yep. Mike, tell me about the butt wipes. What attracted you to butt wipes?
Well,
and how have butt wipes changed your life, Mike?
It smells like
you
chamomile.
Must support your founder.
That's right.
By using these butt wipes. Tell me, Mike, what's it like to use a One Wipe Charlie?
I will tell you
your
exactly about my experience with the butt wipes. When Mike first introduced the idea, the way that we discovered it was that suddenly inside the bathrooms of the office there were like hundreds of little containers of these test butt wipes that he was basically seeding within the office to determine the right chemical composition to make the butt wipe absolutely perfect.
How much peppermint?
Exactly. It's a big debate for him. And but then I also...
So you do get a tingling.
Well, I think some people
if it doesn't tingle, it's not clean.
I'll say, from my personal experience, what was interesting is I'd been at one of my wife's friend's house at one point, and they had baby wipes in the bathroom, and I said, like, why do you have baby wipes? She's like, well, I use them, with toilet paper.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was like a normal occurrence.
Yeah.
But then actually, if you start asking, there's a large portion of people
that
use baby wipes as toilet paper. And suddenly, when we started talking to Mike about it and this research came out, we're like, this is actually much more widely used than you probably realize.
Yeah. Right.
Now, he happened to commercialize the product exactly for it, which, by the way, he was cloned by, I think, Cottonelle or one of the major brands. Like, immediately put out a men's product.
Right.
But, I think you'd find that there's a lot of people that use these products. Mike happened to have the brand strong enough to bring it out, and I think he frankly sells a lot of butt wipes.
Yeah, I mean, he's built a business that went from 20 million last year, and we'll do 60 million this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a big business. And also, I think when we started exploring commerce, and you asked, before the break a little bit about our failures, what we explored commerce in two ways early days. We tried our hand as a retailer. What would it mean to have a kind of sub 50%, don't manufacture your own product kind of business, where and we did it in a few different iterations that did not work out. And then
Is there an example of one that people might recognize or one you shut down?
There was 3 that we touched. Whittleby was one of the largest ones who went out, raised money, and then we never...
I invested.
Yeah, so did we. But we never nailed the margin problem down. Couldn't get in front of it.
Because there were thousands of people who subscribed for the
Oh, yeah.
boxes.
I mean,
they loved him.
They did. He had a major follow base. But manufacturing as many SKUs as he was trying to do, he just couldn't get in front of the problem. The second one was one called Uncovet, which we also wrestled with, which was a kind of a daily selection of goods product. Mm-hmm. That one also hit this kind of $250,000 a month revenue mark, but could never break through. And again, I really believe fundamentally it was a margin problem. The third one was one called Top Floor. So those 3 all represented kind of sub 50% margin commerce retail type experiences. Now on the flip side, we did Urban Remedy, which is a fresh pressed juice business behind a really fantastic founder that has done exceedingly well with shipping fresh pressed juices and cleanses nationwide with a great margin. We did Dollar Shave Club. We've done quite a few others we haven't publicly talked about. One happens to be called This Is Ground that Mike McAdam started in our offices, which is a leather goods business. This is Ground. It's called This Is Ground. They do tech accessories.
And nobody's heard of that before.
Well, it sells inside the Apple Store. We haven't been very public about it.
You'll hear about
They do Court Tacos, and they have a really cool new product called
what's a Court Taco?
So when Mike started exploring leather goods, his belief was that we are so immersed in technology, it'd be great to get some organizational elements that were a little bit more kind of earthy. Sure. And he designed a leather goods line that helps you organize cords and organize all these.
You wrap your cords,
put
a little taco on it.
So he started something called the Cord Taco. Cord Taco happens to sell extensively through Apple Store now and One Kings Lane and great retailers, but he also now is releasing something called a mod, which we will send you, which is basically like a folio for an iPad mini. It's like an old school Franklin planner.
So good to me, man. I
mini.
get so much free
You'll
stuff.
get free stuff.
I love it. My
anyway,
life is great.
But so if we think about those companies as a view, they had strong margins.
Yes, let's talk about that margin
brands.
issue. You keep repeating that. What is it about? Where does the margin not work and where does it work? And how do you know?
Well, one thing that surprised me is we hadn't done really anything in commerce before 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you would think like, 30 to 40% margin should be great to grow a business on. How hard can it be? Right. But I think what you start seeing, and when we see it off of a large portfolio of companies, is that when you deal with returns, you deal with stocking issues, you deal with shipping problems, then you look at customer acquisition costs, and then you have discounting. All that stuff that basically compound brings that margin way down. So you can assume that 25% of your margin spread is going to be kind of sucked out through things that are semi.
So then you're at 10%, and the business sucks,
and you can't make it work. Yes. Right now, it's very different in marketplaces where you don't have to buy the inventory.
So eBay,
or
Etsy, or DogVacay,
Home Hero,
Uber.
That's right. You can deal with different margin levels.
You don't have an inventory problem.
Right, because you don't have to buy all this up front. Right. So one piece is the margin issue. The second piece, and Dollar Shave Club is a great example. It's probably the best example, which is why he can sell 15,000 units. Is that at this point, customers have connected with the brand of Dollar Shave Club directly. When he sends an email, they respond to the email. When they go to his mobile app, they actually purchase product through him. They feel like he is a trusted source for him. So when he releases new product, they're excited to buy it because they believe in him and believe in the brand, right? Now, if Gillette right now launches a new product, you may wait 6 months before it even hits the local stores, even if you could potentially find it, right?
And nobody cares.
And nobody necessarily cares, but people love the brand, right?
Right. Like people care about what Richard Branson is going to launch next.
That's right. He's a brand. It's an exciting brand.
Virgin America's out. I want to taste that. I want to get on that.
Right.
Virgin Mobile. What is that about?
So when I think about, we all lump these kind of like this e-commerce sector together. In my mind, it's very much split between things that act as retailers of other people's goods, and then people that make their own goods with strong brand connection to consumers. And I would even say that even today, Dollar Shave Club, which is obviously so focused at the direct consumer relationship, This Is Ground, on the other hand, we rely on Amazon, we rely on iTunes or Apple Store, we rely on One Kings Lane to sell our products. And it's okay that we have strong enough margins to support those retail relationships, and that's been fantastic for us to build that business.
Peter, people consider you like the best business development partnership guy in the world. You got like I remember for your company, what was the deal you did with T-Mobile?
Oh, Bill Shrink, yeah. They ran
all of a sudden,
national
like,
TV commercials.
Yeah,
for
you
us.
like the company's like 3 weeks old and you got a national TV commercial. How does a small business that nobody knows about convince a giant to participate with them? And you've done this a number of times. How do you do it? What's the secret sauce?
Partially is like all startups, which you do fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. Expand that a little bit.
I think as long as you have the integrity to know that you will follow through if that deal happens, right? You're always skiing ahead of it a little bit, right? In front of your ski tips, just a little bit, because the reality is every startup, like we're working with this 3-person startup right now that has massive enterprise customers. And it's like, look, if you sign the contract, we'll get funding and we will build it, right? It's about having the integrity to know you're going to execute, but maybe we're not as big as you think we are,
right?
And you have to, I think it's always been convincing them you are as big and that you will follow through and you will execute,
right?
And history comes with you with that, right? And so for all the things, I'm pretty old, for all the things I've ever done, I've always followed through on things. Right. People know that if I say this is going to happen,
yeah. So it's not as much fake it till you make it. It's more like, hey, we're not there yet, but here is the vision. Right. Here's where we're going. Come along with us.
And if you have track record and integrity alongside, people will believe. Like, you know what? Peter promised me that last time, and he came through. And even if it didn't happen, man, he worked his ass off. And it didn't work out for this other reason. And that's where I also look at raising money. It's like, look, there's no way we're going to hit 100% on everything we build. But I'll tell you, we put effort in 1,000% day in and day out and try to make things work, and we're never bat 1,000. But I think investors will continue to come back because they see the effort that we put into it.
And you don't need to. How many hits do you need to have? Like if you did 40 companies, what's the math, Mike? You hit one unicorn and you're done. You hit one, because if one of them does 50x, you should be at a profit, right?
Yeah. No, I think we'll be fine in all returns, but I think that part of the theory on why science is a structure I think is interesting is that we should have a higher hit ratio than traditional venture investing because we are so operational and we are so connected to the daily activities of the business. You would hope that the resources that we bring along to that relationship with a startup would help them be more successful than just purely money. Right, and so my hope is that we will bat at a higher hit ratio than traditional venture. Now, I think that the flip side of that is that with venture, if you hit the Snapchat or you hit the Uber, the outweighed returns are just obviously unbelievable.
I just every time somebody says Uber on the show, I just go like this to do a high five to Travis.
No,
that's exactly right.
By the way,
just love it. Just love them every day.
Tied into the infrastructure and the things we work on when we talk about business development, it's about the ability to connect the dots in thinking many steps ahead of where you're going as a product. And so, Mike and I, right before we walked up to here, before we saw you, we ran into a CEO of a company that, in that conversation, in that moment in time, we said, hey, this is what we're working on. We know what you're working on. We should work together. It was an immediate yes, right? And I think we're able to see so much in the industry, and as you do, right? Yeah. This conference is a perfect example. The amount of people here that we should be doing business development, or we are, is happening because we're in the conversations, we're present, and we're always thinking about what's next. And we've been really successful, whether that's with Twitter or Pinterest or Facebook. I mean, we've always had the relationship, and we've been building that over many years. Yeah.
So when we get back from commercial break, I want to talk about what you each did right before science, because my perception is you both had the worst years of your career right before this.
We came together.
Peter, you just absolutely got your ass kicked in a phenomenal flame out with color. And Mike, you, for some insane reason, took the job to be the final CEO of MySpace and this incredible effort to try to save it. So I want to talk about the lessons learned from the dark years for you guys, which wasn't too long ago when we get back from this important break. Yes. New Relic is an incredible piece of software and a service that we use at inside.com, my startup, and at launch for the launch ticker and our servers to do monitoring. We have to make sure that all the services we provide, whether it's the launch ticker or inside.com, are fast, stable, secure, all these things. But, making something fast, you need to know very granularly what's going on. Like, is it the transport layer, like the bandwidth, or is it the servers, or is it the memory on the servers, or is it the databases, or is it your Java, or is it any number of components? down to the code level. And I have had a wonderful experience using New Relic, and we've had a great relationship. Of course, they have a great relationship with their clients like Nike, Warby Parker, Airbnb, Comcast, and AT&T. The company is doing phenomenal. It's got great management over there and a great team. And they have a new product called New Relic Insights, where it asks your software questions and gets answers immediately. Examples: how many people signed up for a free trial today? What is our revenue by geography? How many unique visitors completed checkouts? All of that stuff. And you can check it out at newrelic.com/insights. It's a really fabulous, innovative product. Go check out newrelic.com/insights. And also, if you'd like to get a free This Week in Startups t-shirt, that's only available through New Relic. And that shows you how much they get it. Like, they know there's a super fan audience here, and that you would really appreciate a TWiST t-shirt. Go to newrelic.com/twist. It's super fast. It's super easy. No credit card is required, and it's actually super affordable, and no startup should be without it. And you shouldn't try to roll your own. You should just use the best of breed and have fast, stable, reliable services, because that will grow your audience quickly. The best growth hack really is having a stable and fast service. That's step one. And if you don't have New Relic, you're probably not going to have that. Okay, thanks, New Relic. Let's get back to the rest of this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guests, Mike Jones and Peter Pham of Science. You can go see their incubator accelerator fund.
We're called a studio.
Startup Studio. It's in Santa Monica, and scienceinc.com is where they find you. Science-inc.com. Let's talk about what led to Science, and both of you guys, I guess, in a way, stop being independent entrepreneurs on one project and going to a more like portfolio approach. Mike, you took the job as CEO of MySpace, I think in some ways out of loyalty to John Miller, who bought both our companies, who formerly ran AOL, and this was an opportunity presented to you. Why did you take that job? Do you regret it, and what did you learn?
So when I started my career, I started it in kind of a services segment. Then I built a communication company that, I luckily kind of sold to AOL. And I learned a lot about kind of social communications. I did a bunch within this company, Savo, that really focused on kind of the search world. And then I jumped into MySpace. And for me, I'm a student of business, and I love kind of the whole spectrum of what business means, digital businesses specifically. And coming out of my Savo experience, I wondered whether or not what was the possibilities behind large legacy assets online. Could they be turned around? Can you fix a challenged consumer brand? What would it mean to have something that was huge, that was shrinking, and then what was inside of a big company? And I felt that it was an amazing opportunity for me to get that educational experience, knowing that it was going to be an incredibly difficult role. When I started, I came in as a chief operating officer with two other executives that came in with me through John. When I left, I was the CEO and helped facilitate the kind of sale for News Corp to get the asset outside of their portfolio. I have literally no regrets through that process. I mean, it was by far, you described it as the dark years. For me, it was actually probably one of the most incredible, 3-year experiences of my life, because I built an amazing team. We went through the most difficult of circumstances. We performed amazingly well considering the situation. I think that if there was saving to be done there, we attempted every aspect of it.
But yet, you're able to stay positive about being on a sinking ship and the brutality of having to go through so many layoffs and everything. Is it time that's made you sort of, put this in context? But how was it like in that moment? Because you had to do layoffs, and it's just every day the trend line's going down. How do you stay motivated and keep a team motivated when it's like this?
It's hard, and I think that someone said it's like leading on the edge, like you're in this like cliff-like situation, and you're keeping everyone working. And I even remember that during this kind of massive relaunch that we orchestrated, there was this kind of cumulative 2-week period where we're prepping for the big launch. I'm doing all this press, and I came to the office, and there were like cots lining the halls of this super formal, office in Beverly Hills. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is unbelievable. Like, my executive team and the subsequent layers of management has motivated our team so much around this relaunch that people are literally sleeping in the offices
like a startup
to drive this thing out to this next phase, right? Now, ultimately that failed, right? But what was unbelievable is the people involved in that process committed it to that level, which everyone would have told me, oh, you'll never be able to get people inside of a large company to behave like a startup. We behaved like a startup. We kept startup hours. People pushed themselves further than I see most startups go. And it was incredibly hard for people. But I look back very fondly, actually, at the experience there. And I think that I'm proud, and I'm really proud of the leadership that went through that process with us. two big things came out of it. One is that we were able to sell off the ad components of MySpace that was actually called Fan, that was an ad product that was built by Adam Bain, who subsequently went off to Twitter. And through his leadership there, we were able to sell that to Rubicon, and that became the strong event for News Corp.
Yeah.
And then we were able to sell MySpace.
Did that become a great exit for them? Because they got a nice piece of.
I think it's something that's worth looking into.
Yeah.
But let's assume that it probably did pretty well.
It did pretty well.
And then the second piece was that we were able to get MySpace out of the News Corp public company within a very, very short time frame through incredible people, and offload a lot of things through that process that I think at the end of the day was very helpful to News Corp, even though it wasn't a monster exit coming back to them.
And this informs in some way, perhaps, your belief that you can take Delicious, a legacy brand, and actually make it worth something.
Sure. Well, Delicious is different because it does have a sense of actual utility of why people use it every day.
Right.
So in looking at the historical usage on Delicious, it has been fairly flat for a very long period of time. They've had ups and downs relative to search or SEO or those kind of things, but the people that log in every day that use it still love it, and they still use it as a core utility. And I think if you divide people's usage of these products between utility and community, we're not buying a socially driven community. We're driving a socially driven utility, and it has a very different usage pattern.
All right, Peter, let's go to your dark year in the wilderness, and let's get this over with. My God.
9 months.
Nine months.
Only 9 months.
That was an amazing.
But it was
like a birth.
It was a spectacular disaster. Color. You're the co-founder.
Yeah.
The product was going to be somehow proximate social networking, which I guess Highlight and some other people have now, and Whisper, the Shades and Whisper, and some other things there. What was the original idea of Color, and where did it go wrong? Let me ask it that way.
Well, we went through many iterations. When I met Bill, I was introduced through a couple of mutual friends, and what I will say is, it actually really solidified why I'm doing science now, which was, in that day I didn't know him. Right, I got kind of put in front of him. Everyone's like, he's a great guy. You're gonna get along.
Successfully sold the company to Lala.
Well, before they sold the company for $800 million.
Right,
and then sold the next company $80 million to Apple. Successful entrepreneur. Actually, somebody who I had, funny enough, when Photobucket was in Palo Alto, he was across the hall, and I kind of looked up to him as this icon. Is the only Vietnamese entrepreneur who did an internet company who sold a company for $800 million.
Yeah, it's legit.
Kind of thrust into this relationship. Go running, and we went through multiple iterations around what the product. It was going to be a mobile gaming company. It was going to be this, that, and the other thing. We finally circled around the fact that we are surrounded by a mobile device that is fairly dumb, and social networks that are implicit when you make the choices. And we thought there is going to be a time and place when our proximity and our choices and the things we do, whether we're contextual, who we text, who we talk to, who we are proximity with, every time I see you, it over time will know you and I are friends, right? Where are we in context?
Automatically add each other as friends based on us being at the gym together or something.
In context. Are we going to baseball games every Saturday together? Are we going to football games every Sunday? And so you start building these relationships, and
it's a pretty brilliant pitch.
I look, the reality is I think it will happen at some point. We were too early, and we didn't execute the product at the time of the launch. And that in that 9 month, I learned a lot, and is the moment of we fell in love as co-founders, and then we fell out of love.
Right.
And things went really sideways.
And raised a ton of money, high profile,
$41 million.
Makes it hard when you've raised that much money, you become a little bit of a target. So raising that much money is generally not a good idea. Like you guys raised 3 rounds at once.
I think there's a couple things. I think raising money is okay if you execute on it, and we failed on the execution of it. Yeah. And that was that bothers me, right? And so from that, Mike and I have known each other for a long time. In fact, we talked about the idea of a science-like inspiration of Idea Labs back in 2005. Yeah. And said, we would love to do Idea Labs, but on the west side, not in Pasadena.
Right.
The weather's just better over here.
You're referring, of course, to Bill Gross. Who's the only person who really ever did this with any level of success. And boy, did he. eToys, Free PC, a bunch of things that actually, I think, monetized.
He's here today. I mean,
he's here today. He's still grinding.
He's amazing. Right. He's building great companies. And we said, and it's interesting, Mike and I were in and out of different jobs, and we never were unemployed together at the same time. Yeah, turns out. And Color exploded. MySpace went And we were sitting there going, what are we going to do next? Hey, let's do that thing we talked about a decade ago.
So in a way, it's like sometimes the failure is the opening to the big new opportunity. Like, so it's almost a way to embrace it. You know?
Well, and for me, when I say what I learned from last time is, like, Mike and I have been friends, and I trust him. You know, there's no doubt that he's got my back and I have his.
Right.
And having that trust
Yeah.
was the most important. We're friends first, and then we're business partners. Yeah.
All right, let's close up on growth, because growth is critical for startups.
Yeah.
And you guys seem to have carved a niche for yourself of just being awesome at the growth part, which I know you learned a lot about at MySpace and Salvo, and you learned a lot about it as well. What are the best growth techniques that if somebody, let's say there's an entrepreneur watching who's got their minimal viable iPhone app there with, out there with 500 people using it every day, but it's not growing.
Yeah.
When science looks at it, when Mike Jones and Peter Pham look at it, what are the first couple of things that you guys discuss in that meeting with the entrepreneurial team, 2 or 3 people with that minimal viable product, to say, hey, you're getting 500 people using this a day and you're getting 20 downloads. Here's where what you need to do.
Yeah. I'll let Mike talk about Mike's great at the growth. I did growth at PhotoBucket as well, but I think I look at it an interesting perspective that products today, Net Promoter Score. Like, are you
Explain Net Promoter Score.
Net Promoter Score is the simple question of, would you refer this to a friend? Will you tell your friend to also do this? So download the app, or in DogVacay case, use the service, which DogVacay has a 90 NPS, which is amazing. Apple's a 70. Would you recommend the product to somebody else? And I think we live in a world where Facebook and Twitter are the ability to people be a voice and be loud about how much they love or how much they hate a product is real. So we live in a world where it's table stakes. You have to deliver on a great product to even just play. Right. And then from there...
So start there.
Yes, start there.
How do you employ
and then
that
go backwards and say, and where Mike has been phenomenal, then grow.
So one question on that. How do you ask those 500 people that simple question of how likely you refer this from 1 to 10?
That's why we're called science. I mean,
but how do you actually measure Net Promoter Score?
Yeah, like do you just call them on the phone?
Actually, we've been doing SurveyMonkey. SurveyMonkey is a great way.
Literally just use SurveyMonkey. Dave Goldberg's awesome company. Link here to the SurveyMonkey interview with Dave Goldberg.
Sponsor.
It's an annotation.
I didn't know they were
not a sponsor. They have sponsor ads, but he was also great on the show. So just click here.
There's you Google Net Promoter Score how to, and it's a simple question. So you just send it out, and it's scored.
Now, if you get a low Net Promoter Score, how do you get it to go up?
You got to fix the product at that point, right? Yeah.
That's your viral coefficient.
Yeah, and so how do you fix the product? You just ask people what you would like it, or you just take your best guess? What would you do then?
Well, listen, I mean, I think like people have different perspectives in regards to how to build product, like whether you take customer feedback or not. But I think the main point is if you start with something that people love, growth is a lot easier. if you have something people don't really love, you can maybe still grow it, but maybe it's not a great idea.
Maybe it's a good idea to stop
That's right.
and just
let's get the product
reassess.
right.
I would reassess.
That's right.
Reassess.
So I mean, like when we on the early days within science, well, even like looking historically over all the startups that I've looked at, maybe you've looked at, I feel like every single successful startup has some early stage growth story that was the moment that they began seeing traction and began seeing their breakout. That could be press, it could be organic, it could have been early days of SEO, it could be their use of Google AdWords, it could be their email tactics, but there was some specific
social
kind of host that basically facilitated their initial growth.
Reddit or something.
Facebook,
It could be
Pinterest.
Reddit, exactly right. Yeah. And so I think one common thing that I've seen is when you have a company that has a great product and they focus in on really understanding how to grow within a specific channel, that's a really good start, right? When we've seen people say they dabble in Facebook and then they have a little bit of Google AdSense and they do some email and they have some friend get friend stuff, we haven't seen that work well. We've seen it like when Dollar Shave Club understands how to use video on YouTube, that's a great growth story, right? DogVacay, for instance, grew really effectively through PR. Like, I mean, that was a really strong PR story because people love that product. And we even got so specific at understanding how to grow within these ecosystems. You know, one of our other kind of untold companies is one called Hello Society, run by Kylie Brennan. And she has, built a network within Pinterest in regards to how brands work within Pinterest. And she's found that Pinterest for products and services is a fantastic growth platform and built a really big company actually around it that she works hand in hand with Pinterest around to make sure that those brands get great experiences within Pinterest. So we felt Pinterest is a growth platform, but we also invested in the groups that focused on Facebook and Google and email and Instagram and Vine, etc. Because we believe that we need to have really deep understanding of these growth platforms.
You can't just dabble.
I don't think you can dabble. You can test, but once you find a platform that is showing growth or a method or a tactic, I think you've got to go deep in it and become an expert around it. And then once it gets up to scale, then you can go into the next one.
And if you step back and you look at science, I think that's the one thing we stand out is we've spent a tremendous amount of resources and time in the last 2.5 years building expertise around growing, not just the table stakes of Google and Facebook, but understanding Pinterest better than most, understanding Instagram and Vine and YouTube and what's next, and always on our dime and our resources figuring out what's next, so that when a startup comes to us, they'll never have the resources.
Yeah, I mean, we generally believe, listen, we can all get products built now, right? We can get the mobile app built, we can design the great consumer experience, we can get physical products built, we can design the services, we can probably identify great entrepreneurs, right?
We get customers.
But yeah, I mean, like growth is kind of everything, right? Growth determines whether you get your venture backing. Growth determines M&A tactics. Growth produces revenue. Growth, like most problems are solved through growth.
Right. If you can't grow, then what's the point? And so there's a lot of, but the truth is, most people are struggling with coming up with their idea, a brand name, hiring a team, all those things.
Sure.
Because you've been doing this each for 25 years.
That's an easier part for us.
It's gotten easier for you to get those things done.
I'll tell you a really funny thing I saw the other day is I watched Shark Tank with the kids, so they kind of grok a little bit of what we do, and some quote we talked to somebody who their product went on Shark Tank, and they were like, after Shark Tank we sold $1 million worth of product within 24 hours. It was totally unbelievable. And then there was some quote from one of the investors in Shark Tank that was like, "We're the most powerful VC firm in the world because we bring you customers and money." Right. Now, that's a really nuanced way to think of themselves as a venture capital firm. There's a lot of debate in regards to what they are, et cetera. But I will tell you that the ability to help entrepreneurs figure out how to grow their business is very, very valuable. And in a lot of cases, in my mind, I think it's actually more valuable than money, because the reality is if you can figure out growth, you can figure out money.
Money comes.
Money comes with growth, right? If you can't figure out growth, then there's no money, right? So in a lot of cases, even when we think of our deal structures or we think how we invest, we think, okay, what money is needed to show growth, to make it so that this is something we all want to put our money into? Like, how do we get this company to a point where it's growing and it's so exciting that we all feel comfortable bringing it out to other people's money, right?
Right.
So for us, growth is a really big factor of what we do.
Yeah,
you won't bring something to market without the growth, right? Like it's almost every single thing Peter sends me.
We really want
more traction. We want to start seeing traction. And there's two things, right? I would say startups die because two things happen. Either A, they aren't generating revenue to sustain the business, or they run out of venture funding.
Right.
Sure.
And I spend 90% of my time doing the latter.
Right.
Venture funding, like figuring out, and LA is an interesting market. We believe it wholly. I moved back from the Bay Area, spent 6 years there. There's so much innovation happening in LA, yet there's no money. And so I'm up in the Bay Area every single week.
I see you there at the Battery hustling.
Every week. I was there twice. I was 3 days last week, and it's understanding the bridge between Silicon, as you do, what the investors want from the Valley of an LA company. And it's the seed is probably going to be easier, but the A is hard. The B is a real bitch. The C is really, really hard. And the expectations of what that growth looks like on the A round, the B round, the C round is really important. I think our perspective is we've been there, we've seen it, we've raised the money, we're executing. You look at Dollar Shave Club and DogVacay, who have both raised $23 million at this point, both at their B rounds, and really exploiting businesses. We've been there. And LA is a real interesting market where there's not a lot of folks that have gotten there yet.
Right. All right. Well, listen, this has been amazing. Thank you both for coming on the program. Thanks, Walt and Kara and the whole team at Recode for hosting us here. An amazing event. Just tons of great speakers. Travis, Mashiosa-san, just awesome people. And I'm assuming, first name at science-inc.com might work. I'm taking a guess. Sure. But how do you actually, just for the people who are going to apply now after they watch this, what is the best way for somebody to apply to become a science company?
Warm intros are always really nice, but certainly our website, get referred by somebody.
Best intro would be like a CEO,
Sure, that'd be great.
CEO in the portfolio.
Yeah, even investor we know. I mean, a lot of firms take a look at a deal, and it might be too early to send them our way. Yeah. They say, hey, if you guys can work on them, help them figure out product, get some growth, we'll probably invest.
But we also do have contact data on the website, science-inc.com.
We read all the emails. We look at every email.
Yeah.
And so I'll end on this, the best cold email that got you to actually meet with the person and then invest in them?
Well, we have, first off, is we have.
Has that happened?
Yeah.
Info at science-inc.
Yeah, but we meet with a lot of very cold emails. We have sectors that we're interested in, obviously marketplaces, brands, mobile, and then specific kind of growth technology within social. These are areas we think a lot about, right? When people come to us with ideas that are in that theory, and then, if they come with a little bit of growth story or at least a plan of how to explore it, and my gosh, maybe a mapped out product vision, it's a lot easier than just somebody that wants to just randomly explore, right?
Yeah, so if they have a screenshot or a mock-up or
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
totally
agree
agree.
with that,
Yeah.
All right, listen, this has been a great program. Thanks again, Mike and
Perfect.
Peter, and we'll see you next time on This Week in Startups.